Welcome back to We Want Picks. I'm Artem MMA. I'm going to be giving my predictions for every single fight of Dana White's Contender Series week number 10. And this is the final week of Dana White's Contender Series. Unfortunately, this year has been very up and down for my picks, but I have been very much enjoying the fights. And I do believe we're going to see some really good fighters come out of this year's class. And I think we potentially could get some guys that could end up being pretty highly ranked. As for this week here, we do have a 6-fight card. One of the fights was moved from week number 9 over to week number 10. That is Davi Bittencourt taking on Lucas Rocha, which I will talk about when we get to it. But this should be a fun fight card to close off the season. I think we definitely could see quite a few contracts being handed out. And before we do get into it though, you do have the 3-day free trial for the We Want Picks premium membership service where you get access to all of these benefits here. If you do sign up using the code ARTEM, it's a 3-day free trial that you can cancel at any time. And with all of that being said, let's get into my predictions for the final week of Dana White's Contender Series 2023. So kicking off the card is going to be Davi Bittencourt taking on Lucas Rocha at 135 pounds. Now this is the rescheduled fight from week number 9, so I probably am going to talk about the weight cut quite a bit in this one here because that is the reason why it was pulled from week 9 and is placed on week number 10 now, because Lucas Rocha missed weight by 5 pounds over the limits. He weighed in at 131 pounds, which is odd because he's a former men's strawweight. It's recently of 2019. He was fighting at men's 115 pounds, and he's not big for 125. He's 5'2", and he's not like the most big 5'2" either. He's not like a super bulked up guy. Whereas for Davi Bittencourt, he is a little bit bigger. He's 5'4", and he does have a little bit more muscle on him. And he was the one that was able to make the weight, no problem at all. 125 for him. Lucas Rocha, 131, big miss. And now it's at bantamweight. These guys are going to look very small for 135. They're not big at 125, either of them. Now, this is going to be a fun fight though, and that is why it was rescheduled. Usually you wouldn't see an opportunity given again, but apparently the matchmakers, according to Dana White in week 9's post-fight interview or press conference, said the matchmakers really wanted this fight. And I understand why, because both guys are UFC level in my opinion. Lucas Rocha has proven himself to be a very good young talent. I mean, he's only 23 years old. He's fighting pretty often, 5 times in the last 3 years. And in that time, he has taken on some very good opponents, you know, 11-3, 7-0, and 11-3 over there in LFA. And Davi Bittencourt himself has fought for the LFA and has gotten some good wins on his career. Also some not so good wins, but that does happen. Now, in this matchup, though, the weight cut could be everything, because the thing is, Davi Bittencourt had to cut to 125, and now he's going to have to potentially cut again to 135, and Lucas Rocha had to cut to 131. Maybe something went seriously wrong, and now he's fighting a week later at 135. Who knows, because we have seen in the past weight cuts really affect fighters. Like Chris Duncan had to cut weight all the time for his Dana White's Contender Series opportunity, and he got chinned by Vyacheslav Borchev. Didn't look very good in that fight, and he did put it down to the constant weight cuts. Jack Della Maddalena had to cut weight twice in a very short amount of time. Didn't look very good against Basil Hafez. You never know. These guys might look completely different, and it has been enough for me to actually switch my pick. I was originally on Lucas Rocha, but this is a very close fight as is, and stylistically, it is a pretty good matchup for Lucas Rocha because on the feet, Davi Bittencourt is very hittable. Bittencourt's more of a grappler. Rocha can grapple, but I would say he's more of a striker. But Bittencourt's very hittable. I have seen him knocked down. I have seen him hurt before. And that could be a big factor with this new weight cut that they've got to do. So I would advise you to stay away from it. But I do like the fact that Bittencourt was able to make the weight. Now he's coming back. He's going to be bigger in the matchup at 135. That might even benefit him. He's going to go for takedowns. He's going to look to grapple Rocha. And I think he can do it. Now, Lucas Rocha needs to keep this fight on the feet, but I think Bittencourt can get him down, use his size advantage, especially at 135, and that weight cut scares me a lot. I'm going to go with Bittencourt. Rocha, something must have very wrongly happened for him to weigh at 131 last week, so now he's got to do it again. I've got Bittencourt here. I think he wins. He's plus 106 right now. He is the underdog, and Lucas Rocha is minus 136 at the moment. The next fight will be at lightweight, and that is going to be between Issa Isakov and Marquel Mederos. And this is kind of a striker versus wrestler matchup, where Issa Isakov is the wrestler and Marquel Mederos is the striker. But Marquel Mederos, when I was watching tape on him, I was very impressed by his own offensive wrestling. And given the opportunity, if you get too close to Mederos, he's not scared to go for takedowns himself, and he does have decent offensive wrestling and offensive grappling. But the thing about Issa Isakov is, I do believe he will be the better wrestler. And Marquel Mederos, he didn't seem super big for the weight class when I was watching him take on other fighters. Issa Isakov does seem to be a pretty decent size at 5'9" for 155, and he has fought at 170 pounds at one point in his career, but he definitely is a lightweight. Isakov, he is the wrestler. He does shoot for takedowns from way too far out at times, but he is a guy that is going to be constantly shooting for takedowns and chain wrestling to try and get you down to the ground. And when he does get you down to the ground, he doesn't necessarily just have a ground and pound style. He does have good grappling and good jiu-jitsu ability as well once the fight is down. And he does have good submission ability as well. He does have some submissions there. On the feet, though, Mederos will be the better striker. Isakov on the feet, to be honest, he just seems very uncomfortable. He's very stiff. He keeps his hands very high just kind of to block and guard, obviously, from shots. But he seems stiff, he seems uncomfortable, and Mederos will be the better striker in this matchup. And I do believe that if Mederos can keep the fight on the feet, he absolutely should be able to win that. But the problem is, Isakov is a guy that you can trust to go out there and get takedowns and use his grappling, which he should be the better wrestler and the better grappler in the fight. So I am going to side with Issa Isakov. If you do look at the odds have come out for this fight, and they do reflect the fact that it is very close, because at the moment Issa Isakov is minus 165 and Marquel Mederos is plus 135. So you do have a very good underdog there in Marquel Mederos, but I am going to go with Issa Isakov because I do trust him to use his wrestling and use his grappling as well. Give me Issa Isakov to win this matchup here. Now, one thing I will say about Isakov is he doesn't typically have the most exciting style, so maybe if he does just take down Mederos and control him without really getting too much going and wins a decision, we may not see him in the UFC. But if we do, he might be the first fighter to represent Luxembourg. I don't think any UFC fighters have represented Luxembourg before, so let me know if I'm right or wrong about that. But Isakov is the pick. I do think that he should be able to win this fight by decision, but a submission is pretty likely as well. The next fight's going to be at middleweight between Torrez, Finney and Yuri Panferov. And you may have heard of Yuri Panferov before because he was on one of these Dana White's Looking for a Fight episodes, which he does do on YouTube, where he kind of tours the city. And in this case, it would have been Boston, and they do a bunch of fun stuff. And then they go to watch a fight card and scout potential prospects that they could sign to the UFC. And Yuri Panferov was one of those guys that they had on their roster or on the lookout for. And he didn't really impress that much. He got hurt in the matchup against the 4-4 at the time opponent, and he got dropped. He got hurt. He looked too small for the weight class. So the guys went backstage and they told him, we want you at 185, but we want you on the Contender Series, and that's what they've done. Now, Yuri Panferov, in the past, he has looked a little bit chubby, I will be honest, but he looks toned up. He looks like he's lost weight. He looks really good for 185. He's never fought at 185 before, but the photos that I've seen floating around, he looks like he has taken this quite seriously, and he looks like he's in much better shape. But speaking of being in good shape, Torrez Finney, you will notice that he is only 5'7", but my goodness, dude, this guy, he is built different. Ignore that one. He is built different, dude. He's 5'7", and he is super bulk. He is super buff. And man, he looks like a pretty big fella for 5'7", absolutely massive muscles. And that's kind of how he fights. He outmuscles his opponents. He's a wrestler himself, and he just goes out there and he just tries to take people down and slam them. And he's got absolutely brutal ground and pound as well. But not only that, he has actually gone 3 rounds before. And in that matchup, he didn't look like he had slowed down much in round 3 at all. So he does actually have the cardio to kind of carry those massive muscles around. Now, this is going to be a wrestler versus wrestler fight. Both of these guys aren't the best strikers in the world. Now, Torrez Finney doesn't really give his opponents time to strike against them because he's just diving for takedowns as soon as the fights start. Yuri Panferov kind of does the same thing, but he does give his opponents opportunity to strike with him. Not a good thing. Yuri Panferov is not a striker. He's got nothing on the feet whatsoever. He almost got slept by the 4-4 opponent. Not a good sign at all. Finney just doesn't really strike. He just goes for takedowns. Now, he is a pretty big bulk guy. In this matchup, though, wrestler versus wrestler, I'm going to go with Finney. He's the smaller guy. He's got the lower center of mass. He's pretty short, 5'7" for the weight class, that is. I think he can get Yuri Panferov down and use that ground and pound and get the KO. Now, the odds are quite wide. Torrez Finney's minus 210. Yuri Panferov is plus 170. I didn't expect the odds to be this wide whatsoever. And if you look at Tapology, Most people are going with Panferov, but I really do like Finney in the spot. Now, Panferov's cutting down to 185 for the first time in his career. I like Finney to go out there. He has fought the slightly better competition, not really the best guys in the world, but better competition than Panferov. He's never fought someone with a winning record. I liked Finney. I think Finney's going to go out there, get the takedowns, and absolutely maul him with ground and pounds. But I could see Panferov winning. He does have a more of a grappling style, more of a submission-heavy style, whereas Finney is just trying to take your head off with ground and pound. I'm going to go with that. I think Finney can get it done on top with ground and pound. And now we have Conor Matthews versus Jair Farias, and this is going to be at featherweight. Do not bet on this fight. Stay as far away from this fight as you possibly can. There are red flags everywhere with this matchup. Now, Jair Farias, he is 10-0, and that is a very good record, but he's fought twice in the last 4 years, and I don't really know why he took 4 years off. I couldn't really find out why. He actually did look quite good in his comeback fight against Alva Silva. He did manage to knock him out pretty early in the fight, didn't really have to deal with too much adversity. But man, his fight style is interesting. He is a striker, but his hands are so low. Like, he holds his hands below his waist, literally holds his hands below his waist, and he's just kind of a Muay Thai guy, very technical on the feet, and that's how he strikes. I don't know how good his takedown defense is going to be now, but it did hold up in the past against lesser opponents 4 years ago. That's the problem with Jair Farias. You can go back and look at his old fights, but fighters can completely change in 4 years. You can make rapid improvements in 4 years, or you can just not really try to improve at all and just look like the same fighter for ages, or even regress because he hasn't fought for so long. Who really knows with Jair Farias? And with Conor Matthews is a guy that still hasn't quite impressed me too much. He fought absolutely nobody before going out there and taking on Francis Marshall. I picked Francis Marshall to beat him, and Marshall beats him by decision. He looked really tough in that fight, but he made Francis Marshall look really, really good. And now Francis Marshall's gone on to be 1-2 in the UFC. Doesn't seem like he's really going to go on a run to make something out of himself. And we saw Conor Matthews get dominated by him by decision and have not really a lot to offer Conor Matthews outside of round number 1. But since then, he did go on that Dana White's Contender Series looking for a fight card, and he did beat a guy that was 8-4, and he looked pretty good doing it. He was just a more aggressive fighter, and he did actually drop him a couple of times, and finished him off by submission. Dana White was impressed with him. He's brought him back here for the Contender Series. I'm going to go with Jair Farias, but as I said in the intro, don't bet this fight. I actually think that Jair Farias can win. I think that he is actually the better striker in the fight. If Conor Matthews comes out here trying to wrestle, trying to take him down, I think that he probably could have success. But Jair Farias at 145, he's a very long, rangy guy. He's 5'11", pretty tall for the weight class. He does have a long reach. He does use his reach well. He does kick a little bit, but it's mostly straight shots down the middle with his punches and also with his kicks as well. He throws a lot of straight kicks, if that makes sense, up the middle, teep kicks, front kicks. I think he can keep Conor Matthews at bay, and I think he can land something eventually. I've got Farias by KO, but as I said, stay away from this one here. It's not a fight to bet, in my opinion, whatsoever. Farias is minus 175. I don't know why. Conor Matthews is plus 145. I think Conor Matthews could definitely win this fight, coming forward and wrestling. I was fully prepared to potentially pick Matthews before watching the tape on Farias, but I was impressed enough with the striking, with the distance management to pick Farias, but I just want to emphasize for the third, maybe fourth time in this breakdown, keep your money away from this fight. This is not a fight to bet. It's a fight to enjoy. The winner will probably win by finish, and they'll probably get signed to the UFC, especially if it is Farias, because he'll be 11-0, which will be awesome. But I don't really know how good he really is. He's fought once in the last 4 years, so who knows? Let's move on to the next one. The next fight's going to be at flyweight between Rickson, Zenidim, and Andre Lima, and this should be a very fun fight. Now, flyweight fights typically are fun, but Rickson, Zenidim fights are a different kind of fun. This guy is wild on the feet, man. He bombs forward, and he is throwing hooks, man. He is throwing bombs, trying to take your head off, but he's not a striker. He is a grappler. He is a wrestler grappler, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to get this fight down to the ground, and Andre Lima is not really a grappler, but he is pretty good grappling, considering he is a kickboxer as his base. He had a pretty lengthy kickboxing career that went for a few years, and then he had an amateur fight, lost that one, and now he's become a pro. And he's gone on to have a pretty successful career, and he has gone 6-0. But this is going to be a grappler versus striker matchup, but I do believe that Andre Lima has shown the tools to keep this fight on the feet. If you do watch his fights, you will be quite impressed with how good his grappling actually is. He has been put in some very, very tough situations, like this fighter here, Igor Talon. I believe it was in round number 1, had his back, and he had to fight against a rear naked choke for the whole round. Turned it around, knocked him out in round number 2. At the very end of round number 2, he's had to defend takedowns in the past. I believe it was Victor Santos in this matchup here, which he won a decision. Had to defend a couple of grappling sequences and wrestling from Santos in round 1 as well. Now, Andre Lima, though, he has shown the ability to get taken down, so that could be a good thing for Zenidim, because he does absolutely bomb away to get down and close the distance and get takedowns. But the problem is, I think that might be his weakness here. I think he is going to leave himself too open on the feet against a guy like Andre Lima. Now, Rickson Zenidim was actually meant to take on Luis Pejuelo, Kevin Borjas, I should say. I had him confused with another Peru fighter. And I think that would have been a good matchup for Zenidim. I think that Zenidim would have won that fight. I think he would have got it down to the ground and won it by submission. But this is a very hard matchup for him, and I do hate to pick against him, because Rickson Zenidim probably will be watching this video. He commented on one of my videos at the start of Dana White's Contender Series, kind of like giving me support because I talked about how fun his fight was going to be. Now, I'm sorry, but I am going to be picking Andre Lima. Andre Lima on the feet is a very, very good striker, and he is going to be more technical than Rickson Zenidim. He has shown good takedown defense in the past. He has shown good grappling defense in the past, and I think it's going to be good enough to keep this fight on the feet, with Rickson Zenidim absolutely will be comfortable, but he's going to be too wild. He's going to be absolutely swinging. Maybe he could land and get a KO, but I think Lima's going to be kind of too weary of it. I think he's going to be able to move out of the way and win by maybe like round 2, round 3 TKO. I think he might catch Zenidim as he's coming forward. So give me Andre Lima to win this matchup here. But I do like Zenidim's chances. I just think Lima wins this matchup. Now, there aren't any odds available for this fight. I'm recording this on Sunday night in New Zealand, so no odds yet for this matchup, but I am going to go with Lima. I would suspect him to probably be the favorite as well. And the final fight of Dana White's Contender Series 2023 is going to be at bantamweight between Ramon Taveras and Cortavious Romious, where Ramon Taveras was on the show earlier this year. I believe it was like week 5, week 6, where he took on Sorhe Sidi, and Sorhe Sidi knocked him out in round number 1, but it was a pretty early stoppage. It didn't really give Taveras the time to recover, to move out of the way. He kind of got knocked down pretty badly, and then the referee stepped in, but Taveras was fine. Dana White thought that the stoppage was so bad that he was going to give Taveras another opportunity on the show, and they've given him Cortavious Romious. Now, Cortavious is very fun. His nickname is Are You Not Entertained? And he is a pretty fun guy to watch, man. He is a grappler for the most part. He has fought pretty high. I believe he's actually fought at 150 pounds before. We do consider that he's not really the biggest fella in the world. He's 5'4". I believe he fought at 150 pounds in his last fight, or maybe that was at 145. But he definitely, here, it was 150 in his last fight, where he just went out there, got the takedown, and then got the submission by armbar in round number 1. But for the most part, he is a grappler. He does wrestle to grapple. He does get submissions pretty early on in this fight. On the feet, he isn't the best striker, but his striking comes with a purpose. This is Romious. He strikes too close to distance. You know, he kind of does have that boxer, wrestler sort of approach, where he is striking. It's not super technical, but when he is striking, he's moving forward and then diving for takedowns and then getting those takedowns. Whereas Ramon Taveras, we didn't see too much of him on the Contender Series, but it was good to get that fight, because we didn't really see too much in his last fights, because he wasn't fighting the best opponents really in the world. And we did see that Ramon Taveras is a boxer. I mean, we did know that if you did look against his combat night, that all of these fights are on YouTube. He is a boxer. He probably will be the better pure striker in the matchup. He will be bigger. He's going to have that reach advantage. He's going to have that height advantage. But I do like the stylistic matchup for Romious. We've never really seen Taveras' grappling tested. You know, he hasn't really fought the best guys in the world, as you can see here. We've never really seen his takedown defense tested. We've never really seen his grappling defense tested. Romious is a guy that will do that. He probably will be outsized in the matchup, although it is at 135. And as I said, he's fought at 145 in the past, 150 pounds in the past. But I think we're going to see Romious go out there, get the takedowns on Ramon, and use his better grappling to get a submission. I don't know how small he's going to look at 135, but maybe Romious could be a guy that could potentially fight at 125 in the future. But he does have pretty like good size to him. He's not a Torrez Finney, but he does have like a pretty good muscular build. So maybe 125 wouldn't be in his future. But I do believe Cortavious Romious goes out there, gets in there, closes the distance, gets the takedown, and uses his grappling to his advantage and gets a submission over Ramon Taveras. So they are my picks for week number 10, the final week of Dana White's Contender Series 2023. If you liked the video, please leave a like and please comment if there's anything you agree with, disagree with, and with all of that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.